Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Be Heard Women Empowering Women. And today we have a repeat appearance, which I'm really happy about because she's so knowledgeable, from Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, who's a psychotherapist. And she's written two, at least that I know of, award-winning books. One of them is Ace Your Life, Unleash Your Best Self, and Live the Life You Want. And the other one is Free Your Child from Overeating, 53 Mind-Body Strategies for Lifelong Health. Welcome, Michelle. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed talking to you the first time, and I'm excited about the second.
Me too. So, I'm going to skip around here, but the children, I noticed that because nobody ever wanted to address eating issues with children, especially the younger they are. You don't want to body shame or whatever. So how do you approach if you see your child is like really not eating healthy when they're not around you or whatever? How do you approach that?
Well, that's a big question.
I'm known for that.
Yeah. So, the whole book is about that, but
Yes.
I will try to tell it down as much as I could. It's really, really important that you speak directly and compassionately to your children, of course, and no matter what issues you're bringing up. A lot of parents, it's interesting what they'll say to me is, or even I've had grandparents come over to me and say, oh, if I'm scared to mention this to my child because I might talk something into them that they don't already know, or it's going to make them anxious. And I say to them, does your child have a mirror, access to a mirror? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, they kind of know.
They know, yeah. They
Yeah.
know.
And also, if you think about also what's in style, what's trending now in terms of kind of style, like clothing style, it's all the crop tops, the belly shirts and the short shorts and the like really, really micro minis, that's what's in style now. That's what's like trending.
Yeah.
So when when they see that they're different than their peers, right? Or they can't wear the same types of clothing as their peers, they know it. You don't have to say it to them. They know it. And then I also say to them, if your child had diabetes, or any other type of health issue, let's say, would you hesitate at all to speak to them about it?
Oh,
No,
not. No.
of course not.
And I think too, like, of course, as a parent, make sure there's healthy food in the house. Don't have junk in the house because I know people that do that. They have junk in the house. And if I question it because, they've complained to me that they're getting heavy or whatever, I'll say, well, why do you have all that junk in there? Oh, it's for my husband, And I'm thinking, well, you know what? I know from experience because I had an eating disorder when I got sober. I turned to food, which is a common thing. You go cross addiction.
Yeah.
And you can't have it in the house. You can't. I can't have wine and vodka in my house and stay sober. And I'm sober 32 years.
Yeah.
So I think not having junk in the house. Now you cannot always be with
I'm gonna stop you for 1 second.
Okay. If you disagree with that.
Because you're referring to it as junk.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop you there. I'm gonna stop you there.
Educate me.
Because if you think about the word junk, right? We all eat foods that don't have, are not high in nutritional value.
Right.
Okay. So that's really what you're talking about. You're talking about a food that has empty calories, let's say, or doesn't have like high nutritional value. But if you eat junk food, okay, what does that say about you? That you're putting junk in your body. Like, think about that. It's so derogatory.
Yeah.
Derogatory. And it sounds like it's self-destructive. We don't think about that as with food. Now we formulate a very negative relationship with food when we call it derogatory terms. All food has a space and a place. All food.
Okay. All right. Well,
right?
Yeah. So I know myself that, I like potato chips, but I don't keep them in the house. But if I go out somewhere and the chips come with the sandwich, I'll get it and I'll eat a few of them. But that's it too. It's moderation, moderation, right? So Anyway, the other thing I was thinking is, because I know someone that did this and it seemed to work. Her daughter gained a lot of weight after having a baby, you know,
Huh?
and she
Yeah.
was upset about it. And she got her a gym membership with her, like a dual thing, a mother daughter. And she said, "This is fun. Let's do this. Let's do this together." And they went to the gym together and she lost 50 pounds. What do you think of that approach?
Well, that's part of, again, that's, a whole chapter in my book. It's like, what do you do as a family?
Yes,
What do you
yes,
do as what do you do as a family? So
yes.
it is, especially when you're dealing, again, it depends at every age. I think it
Mm-hmm,
has to be a systemic approach, to it, because
mm-hmm.
then it doesn't maintain itself. And like,
Yeah.
so parents, kids will come to me and they'll say to me, we have all this, like, all these foods in the house that don't have a lot of nutritional value, and we're eating a ton of it, and and my mom says that she buys it because for my brother, etc. And I say, if you think about it, if a person in the house, let's say, had a broken leg or something, aren't you going to move the chairs away so that they're able to kind of be mobile as much as they can be? Or are you
Mm-hmm.
going to put barriers in front of them so they can't
Exactly.
move
Exactly. That's
around?
how I feel.
So you're gonna help your family member, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what. So if your child or somebody in your household is struggling, okay, and they, for whatever reason, overeat a certain type of food or whatever, like, it's important to be supportive and encouraging,
Right.
and I think the point that you made is a good one. Like, it's okay. Like, if somebody likes to eat chips or candy or whatever the case is, that's fine. But you could eat it outside of the house.
This
There's no
person that
reason.
doesn't have the problem. Right.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's
And then,
right. I agree
yeah,
with you. And so the mother really also, the message she could be sending to this child is that she cares more about the other sibling than him or her because she is having the snacks
that's right.
for him, even though she knows, you know what I'm saying? So I think that the mother has to really look at how she's handling it. And the fact that the child brought it up to you means, yes, we're right about that. Don't have it in the house.
Yeah. And I think it's also what's subliminally communicated, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
if you're saying, oh no, we need to have it in the house because, I need access to it 24/7, you're also basically saying, like, I'm not really being sensitive to your challenge,
No,
and I don't really have to do anything to try to help you. Like,
right.
I'm going to just do it my way, and I'm not going to necessarily be compassionate or sensitive to your needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I know for myself, my own experience as a child, you know, my mother was very negative. Uh, Things like I wore my hair behind my ears at one time, and she said, "You can't wear your hair like that because your ears are too big." Like they don't realize, at least in my opinion, she didn't realize that was a very negative thing to say to me and made me very self-conscious forever about my ears, you
Sure.
know. So
Yeah.
for us to cultivate our own self-acceptance and compassion ourselves and realize we are beautiful inside and out no matter what anyone told us, that's a hard path to get to, isn't it? How do we get there?
It is, because there's so many messages that we get from all over the place. We get messages from our families of
Mm-hmm.
origin. We get messages socially, or societally, like, based on our gender, race, religion, and so forth and so on. We're always getting messages from everywhere.
Right.
So the way to cultivate, kind of, I would say, like, authentic confidence is within. You will have the longest relationship with yourself more than anybody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you do need support or encouragement, you know, you again, you have easy access to yourself at all times, right? You're portable, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
You don't always
Mm-hmm.
have access, the access of other people, even though that would be nice. So we really need, and when you find it authentically and genuinely, it comes from within. It doesn't come from without, you
No,
know.
right. You have to
Mhm.
go within so that you can shine your light without. without. That's what I think of, because until I faced my own demons, which was in my first book, Raised by Wolves, Trapped by Demons, the wolves were my parents. They, grew up as if we had no support. We had no affection. My father's an alcoholic and I had no coping skills. So what happens? I turned towards, at first was men, toxic men, because you're marrying your father and thinking you're going to change him, that whole dynamic, which we won't get into today. But
Yes.
until I got sober and was told to look within, I didn't get healthy emotionally. And
Yeah.
I did 9 years straight therapy when I got sober. I went away twice for long periods. The sober was 28 days, of course, and then the eating addiction was 21 days. 5 years sober, I went for family of origin for a week, but it was fantastic because the depression was coming back. I mean, I'm still working on myself. You
Sure.
can't stop because I sometimes still get triggered.
Yeah. Yeah. So we always get triggered.
Yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
about that. That's a good
Yeah.
topic right there.
It is. And just very, very interestingly and ironically, just this week I published a blog on Psychology Today on triggers.
Wonderful. I'll have to go read it when I'm
Oh
done.
yeah, it's called 8 Ways to Directly Transform Your Triggers. That's what it's
Oh,
called.
I'm gonna go look at that.
Yeah. So, and that's actually something that I'm studying a lot more about, and I'm very interested in, and I'm gonna. That's like the idea I have for a third book, actually.
Oh wow.
Is
Oh, I will definitely get that book,
yeah.
Michelle. I mean, I long story, a lot of stuff happened to me, a lot of violent things with husbands and different things, and attempted rape by a stranger, and a lot of things.
Mm.
And even the long-term therapy and dealing with it and everything else. The other day, I live in a senior community, and some of our seniors are becoming into their 70s, 80s, and even 90s. And there's dementia happening here, and especially with the ones that live alone. And this woman accosted me when I got home from church before I even got out of my car. I don't know her. I didn't never saw her in my life, but she was having some kind of delusional thinking, and she had a baseball bat.
Oh my
And she
gosh.
said if I didn't stop following her, she was going to, next time, she was going to hit me with this bat. I was very calm while it went on, and I didn't interact with her. And my neighbor had been coming out of the house, and when she saw her, she backed off. Now, I will tell you, this is how my psyche works. I handled that the right way. I go in the house, I call the sheriff's department, I make a report. Calm, calm, calm. When that was all done, I was shaking and terrified because it came back stuff that I had gone through, right? Is that how kind of a trigger goes off?
It does. And, it generally comes actually from our somatically in our bodies,
Yeah.
and our nervous system. So it mimics, right, the feeling that we felt during times of terror or, like you said, trauma,
Mhm.
fear, intensity, whatever it is. And our brains and our bodies make that association automatically because that's what stays in our memories. That's what gets fragmented, in our memories because our brain is wired to protect us from danger and discomfort. So whenever it detects that, it's almost maps out that memory to ensure that that's not going to happen again.
Right, right. And
Right. So that's why we don't have very strong, palpable memories that are positive because our
mhm.
brain doesn't have to protect us. So it doesn't go into this long term memory like it does with something negative.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And I know for me, I had a situation when I did start therapy. I said to the therapist, I said, I can't remember anything from 5 to 12 because five, I had a traumatic incident. And he said he was going to hypnotize me and he couldn't. And then he said to me, you know, your brain doesn't want you to remember. It's protecting you.
Right.
And that's true. That's true. So a lot of things that went on in my house at that time with the alcoholic father and my siblings, I think even when you witness someone else's trauma, it imprints on you. Am I right in that one?
Yeah, again, it depends on, it depends how you're wired. It depends on, the extent of the trauma. There's so many different factors,
Right.
but most definitely. So if you're witness to a crime or you're witness to violence or whatever it is, yes, you could
Yes.
definitely, unfortunately, based on what's going on in the world right now, right? There's a lot of
Oh,
violence and
yes.
etc. Yeah. So, the people who witnessed, or people who do witness, accidents, trauma, whatever kind of comes up, they are also very, they develop PTSD just like the person who's experiencing it
Mhm.
themselves.
Sometimes you
Mhm.
have that survivor's guilt, I think, too.
Sure.
Like my brother, I never got beaten physically. The abuse with me was emotional, but he was beaten physically. So of course, being older, I'm the oldest. I don't know, but I kind of feel like, geez, could have stopped it. No, I couldn't have stopped it. I was a child, you
That's
know.
right.
So let's talk about this. We were talking about therapy and everything, and everybody doesn't get therapy. Some people don't like to feel emotion. They certainly don't want to dissect it. And I
Mm.
believe there's a term for that called emotional avoidance.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So that's the term that I coined.
I know.
And I did a TED talk on it. So yeah, it's basically our avoidance and resistance to negative emotions. And again, because of the discomfort, it's really uncomfortable to lean into our negative emotions. It makes us, uncomfortable, like I said, in our mind and our bodies. It's very fear inducing. Sometimes it could lead to hopelessness and helplessness,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
So for good reason. For good reason. Anytime we experience those kind of emotions, they're so painful, right? They're so painful. Why would we want to, why would we not want to go anywhere near them? We want to avoid
Exactly.
them and resist
Yeah,
them. Yeah. But again, if we don't feel, we don't heal. That's part of the problem.
that's a good one. We don't feel, we don't heal. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I like that. So, what's a healthy way to engage with these feelings and emotions?
Well, I always tell people, you have to do it incrementally
Mm,
because your mind and body is automatically going to resist. That's just the way it is, right?
mhm,
And if I was on, for example, I had a session yesterday, and it just so happens the person happens to be a psychotherapist who I was treating. But she had some formative trauma when she was really young. Like she remembers like a lot of neglect where she would be sitting in her crib, even as an infant, and nobody would come and pick her up.
mm,
There's a lot of even pre-verbal trauma that was going on,
mhm,
a lot, which really kind of, in essence, was more kind of neglect based.
mhm,
So, she constantly, represses, and she constantly avoids, and she resists negative emotions. And how does she do that? It appears as if it's healthy, right? Because she
mhm,
distracts.
uh-huh,
She distracts. And we talked about like, yes, it feels better in the moment temporarily, but in
mhm,
the long term, it's not helping you to change your neural pathways. It's not
mhm,
helping you to really grow and change your nervous system, right? It's
mhm,
just, again, repeating and, repressing, repeating and repressing. So in order to really change, you have to do something different than you've ever done before.
mhm.
And that requires, like, again, very incrementally. So she said, what does incrementally mean? How do I do it? Like, so I said, even if, for example, so a feeling or a thought that comes up for her all the time is she gets in this really panic stricken kind of state when her partner, her husband, leaves the home or goes on a business trip or whatever the case is. She gets very
Mhm,
panicky and fearful. And she's a little
mhm,
older. So a
mhm,
lot has to do with, I'll be alone and how am I
mhm,
going to survive, and etc.
mhm,
So, what did she do? She would call her friends, or she would, do an activity or whatever the case is to kind of avoid the feelings. So she never exposed herself to the
oh,
feelings, to understand, like, okay, I could feel in danger and not be in danger, right?
yeah,
Which is teaching your nervous system, right, and your cognition something. Right, that it's okay to feel that way, right? Because that's a human emotion, And where does it connect to in terms of her values? But it connects to her desire to be connected. She likes to be connected, and
Mm-hmm.
she likes to feel safe, and she, and stable and grounded. Those
Mm-hmm.
are all good things. Those are beautiful
Right,
things,
right.
right? So she has to learn, she has to teach her nervous system, like, okay, I could feel this way, but I'm actually safe and
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually connected.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not terror like it used to be when I was sitting in my crib for hours and hours and nobody would pick me up.
Right. So I see where you're going with this because I totally been told to do this myself. The feeling comes and she goes directly to what she thinks is a solution, but she bypasses looking at it.
Yeah. Well,
Gets hard on the mark
and feeling it,
and
feeling it.
feeling it. That's what I
Yeah.
was told. Feel the
So
feeling.
it becomes like a physical response if you think about it. Like, oh my goodness, like it feels panicky, it feels scary, like I need to
Uh-huh.
flee, right? It's like the nervous system going into the fight or flight, and then she kind of runs, right, for the hills.
Yeah, right,
And the way that she does is by distracting.
right.
So she could, again, really slowly and incrementally. So one suggestion I gave to her is when that comes up for you,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the first time it's okay to get the encouragement, but then take some, a few minutes and sit in meditation with the feeling, right?
Meditation is so undervalued. I mean, people are getting into it more these days. I mean,
Yeah.
actually, I have two grandsons that actually do meditation, which I think is great. But for me, like meditation used to mean that I had to silence my mind. And my minister has told me, no, you're going to have thoughts pop up. It's just sitting quietly, and whatever thoughts come up, just let them go by and just let them go by. And
So,
but I do.
so you're
Ahead.
talking about acceptance, right? And being
Hmm.
in the present moment awareness. That's what you're,
Mindfulness. Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. But what's what I'm at this level. It's like, grade school, high school, college, master's degree. So maybe I'm in high school. Guided meditations work for me very
Mhm.
well because
That's
that's a
great.
different voice I'm listening to, and I don't have to
Yep.
listen. And but I do the silent meditations too, but not for a long time.
But that's okay. That's
Yeah,
perfect. I have a YouTube channel and I publish a guided meditation every week.
I think that you told me that. That's right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's your
So
YouTube channel is called? Just
it's,
your name?
yeah, Dr. Michelle Maidenberg. Yeah.
Okay.
BR. Yeah, Michelle Maidenberg. And like I
Yeah.
said, every Thursday I publish a new guided meditation and I publish it on, YouTube and Facebook and all my kind of
Yeah.
handles.
Social media.
So
Uh-huh.
if you log on like on Facebook to Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, and you
Yeah.
like me, you'll get, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll
Yeah.
get the guided meditations every Thursday.
I'm going to
And it's usually
subscribe
at
to
like
your.
11
Oh,
a.m.
wait. I already subscribed last night to your channel.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
So now you have to go subscribe to mine, which is
Okay,
Be
I'll do that.
Heard Women Empowering Women. That's it.
Yeah.
You have to empower each other. So, Michelle, before we started recording, we said, how do you deal with toxic family members? Because when you have toxic people in your life, you can avoid them, you could cut them out of your life, etc. But you can't do that with your family members. So how can you deal with that?
So I think again, you really want to be in line with your values. I can't say that enough. Okay. And what
Hmm.
does that mean? So if you're dealing like again with a parent, a sibling, I mean, again, there's a variety of different people in your life and your family
Right.
constellation that can be, let's say, challenging. I'll call it
Very.
challenging. I think the
Mhm.
word toxic just sounds a little bit overused to me.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
I don't think it takes into consideration the dynamics that play out in family relationships.
Yeah.
So if you think about it that way, sometimes you have to set boundaries,
Yeah.
and it depends on, I guess, the extent to which it negatively impacts you, whether
Mm.
it's the behavior, the communication, whatever the case is.
Hmm.
And it's okay. When you set boundaries, it's an act of self-love.
Yeah.
People don't think about it that way. And,
No,
I'm going to repeat that again. When you set boundaries, it's an act of self-love.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Because
mean it
you're
that way.
proving your worthiness.
Yes.
Okay. And
It's hard.
it is
Yeah.
hard. It is hard. There's no
So
question about it. Uh-huh.
I had to work with triangling with my therapist because I didn't think I was triangling. And she said, if one daughter says something to you and then you call the other daughter and tell her what she said and say, what do you think about that? That's triangling.
Yeah.
So that was just a normal thing. So I
Uh-huh.
worked really hard this past year, and there were a couple of times where I had the phone in my hand. And I went, "Oh no, better be triangling. Don't call her."
Good for
Oh,
you.
I worked on it. I'm working on it. So we have these sessions are too short, but we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything else? Well, what can help us increase our overall well-being? Like I said, I'm working on the triangle and I'm
Yes.
setting borders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think again, it's really getting to know yourself,
Mm,
really studying and evaluating your behaviors and recognizing what's not serving you.
mhm.
Whether it's again family relationships, whether it's relationships in general, whether it's again maybe stuckness, stagnation, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and understand what's underneath that, like what is keeping you stuck and keeping you from really aligning with your values, right?
Mm,
Part of that, I mean, part of the book that I wrote, kind of Ace Your Life is acceptance, compassion, and empowerment. And those are the pillars I find, the barriers that get in the way, and also very important essential skills and tools to fortify and integrate that in the realm of your life so that you could live the life you want to be living and live your best life.
yeah, I'm reading that book right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And for me, I know what it is. It's abandonment issues. So these certain people, when I do set a boundary, they cut me off. They cut me out
Yes.
of their life, and it
Yes.
hurt, and it hurts, and that is the hard part for me. I
Yeah.
really struggle with that. You know.
And for good reason. What you also have, what's important to understand is, people are on different frequencies.
Hmm,
Okay. Yeah. And what I mean by that, when I say different frequencies, is they're not in the same level of emotional maturity.
right.
And, most people that I work with, a lot of people that I work with they tend to be empaths,
Yeah.
right? They
Hmm.
tend to be very, very, again, emotionally sensitive, or right, they take on the emotions of other people, etc., right? Because they're affected emotionally. Yeah, I mean, me too. Yeah. So, if you're that kind of a person, you're going to absorb a lot from the outside world, and in our families, and I could talk for myself as well, we tend to be, again, more emotionally equipped because of being emotionally sensitive.
Hmm.
And although you're the outlier, and you're the minority. So when you look in and you're like, 1 second, why am I on the outs? Right? Like, is there something wrong with me?
Yeah.
And it feels that way, right?
Hmm.
But we
Hmm.
also have to recognize that we just may be on a different emotional frequency than
That's a
other
good way to
people.
look at it. And that
Yeah,
we're almost out of time. So we're just gonna have to do another visit with
that's
you
okay. I'm happy to
again.
do
And
that.
we just might talk about family dynamics because
Yeah.
I think that's a topic that we could do a good service to people talking about.
Yeah. And listen, I think most people struggle, in some form with
Yes.
their family dynamics. It's just
I think
inevitable.
so. I think so. So it was wonderful seeing you again, Michelle. And
Yeah.
everyone, just, you can go to her YouTube and everything. And just like anything else, you just type in her name, Michelle Maidenberg, Berg at the end,
Yeah.
and everything pops up. So thanks again for coming.
You're welcome, Marie. And I hope you have a great weekend. And it's so nice seeing you.
Yeah, I
Oh,
deserve a great week.
you do.
I'm gonna do a lot of self-care.
Love
Everybody
it.
should. Thanks, Michelle. We'll have another
Okay.
one of these. Thanks
Yes.
again. Bye
You
bye.
will.